Today we're going to be going over Lesson 10. This is in Chapter 31 of your textbook. And we're going to be doing Xrefs today and attaching drawings into the background of our active drawing. And this is also a very common thing we do in serious production work within AutoCAD. And it's a really useful tool because a lot of times you'll have a base drawing, and in our case it's a survey drawing of an existing road. We don't want to change that. We don't want to accidentally screw something up that's in that survey drawing. And so we make a design drawing, and we Xref in, we just reference in this survey drawing in the background. And we can see it and we can somewhat manipulate it, but it's also fairly locked down, and we're not going to accidentally delete things out of that original survey drawing because we don't want to, right? That's what was given to us. We don't want to mess with it much. Now, occasionally you probably actually go into the survey drawing and change some things, but in most of our work, we're going to leave it alone, and we're going to leave it alone completely through that. And the other thing that's nice with Xrefs is that if multiple drawings and multiple people then can work off of that same survey piece, that same Xref into their drawings. And so we'll do this a lot of times. I used to work in highway design, right? So the people doing the hydraulic piece, the drainage portion of it, have the same Xref as the people who were designing the road piece of it, and so forth. And so multiple people can see that same drawing in the background. If we actually worked in the survey drawing and drew our stuff in on top of it, only one person could be in it at once, right? And that's obviously not good. And so it really frees things up. And not only that, but you can do multiple references, reference multiple files into your current active drawing. And that way you can see what everybody else is working on plus that survey, right? But at the same time, you can see what they're doing, but you're not interfering with what they're doing, and you're not changing stuff in their drawing. And you're just, it's exactly as it sounds. It's a reference, so you know where things are. And so we're going to work on that today. It's a huge thing. I don't think I've ever worked on in a drawing in a production environment at a consulting firm that wasn't Xref'd in something, right? Now, yeah, occasionally we had to go back to the root drawing and fix some stuff and symbols and maybe line types, or move some things around that we found were wrong. But almost any design file is Xrefing something into it, and quite often you've got 4 or 5 references in a design file. So this is just like last time. Paper space was really important. We use it all the time. So is Xref, and we're going to put them together today. We're going to do Xrefs with paper space. I mean, crazy stuff. All right, so we're really moving into true production stuff that you would actually use. Again, if you get an internship this summer and want to work for a consulting firm, is an internship. Knowing how these Xrefs work and knowing how paper space works is going to put you way ahead, right? Because you're going to see this all the time. So the instructions, we're in Lesson 10, the in-class assignment. The instructions today, we're working in Chapter 31 from our textbook. We're going to download this drawing called Lesson 10 ICA, and also a drawing called survey.dwg. Download those to your local drive, your C drive if you're working at home with your own setup of AutoCAD, or the H drive if you're working on one of the remote lab computers from Gellerson. So yeah, put your files there. So if you're working on a remote lab, do not put them on your desktop or in the C drive of that computer, because it'll get wiped off as soon as you log out. Put it in your H drive. All right, if you're working on your personal computer back at home, and you've got AutoCAD loaded on it, you can put it anywhere you want on your computer, somewhere you can find again, right? So make yourself a folder and put it in there so you can find it before you have to upload it when you're done. So you'll have those 2 files. You'll have a Lesson 10 ICA, and then you'll also have one called survey.dwg, right? Survey.dwg is just what it sounds like. It was a survey file. We're going to Xref that, or attach it as a reference in the background of this Lesson 10 ICA file. This would be, Lesson 10 ICA would be like your design file. This is where you'd put your design elements, right? And your drawing, it's kind of like if you've got a thin sheet of paper, tracing paper, and you put it over the top of an existing drawing, and you can write on the tracing paper, right? It doesn't change the underlying drawing at all. You can pull that sheet of tracing paper off, and all you'll see is your new design stuff, and it didn't affect at all what you were tracing over the original file. And that's almost exactly how this works in AutoCAD. And AutoCAD's obviously a little smarter than just tracing paper, right? So we can reference things in that survey drawing and tag them, see what layers they're on. We can snap to them. We can line up our dimensions off of them in that reference file. But unless you click a lot of special commands, you can't get into that file from this design one and erase something that's important or do some other damage to it. All right, so it'll stay intact. You really have to think about it, and you have to use some advanced tools if you were going to get in there accidentally from this file, right, through that. And actually, if you want to really adjust things in that reference file, you want to get out of this one and open it up. And you can open multiple files. There'll be up here in your tabs here in the top left. So you could have it open if you really needed to fix things in that. And that's normally what I would do through that. So generally it's a safe way to use that existing file without making inadvertent changes to it. Right? So we've got those two files. We're going to create a new layer. So we're going to start over here in Home box. There we go. And I'm going to open up Layer Properties Manager. Apparently it's updated. And this thing's been running kind of slow here today, so it's really slow. It's not even, there it is. All right, so here's my Layer Properties Manager. Right, it pops up. I need to create a new layer for it, and so I'm gonna put it in on. When you attach a reference file, it attaches it to the layer that is currently active. All right, and when you start up, you're almost always on layer 0. And that's not a good layer to be inserting your Xrefs on, right? So the nice thing about if you put the Xref in on a certain layer, it's easy to shut it off if you don't want to see it. And if it's a very busy file and there's a lot going on or a lot of references, we often have to turn off one or more of those reference files so we can see things more clearly in our design file. So I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to call it Xref. There we go. That's what I think. Yep, that's what it said to do. Make sure it's turned on, so the light bulb is on. That it's not frozen, so the sunshine is on. It's not a snowflake, right? It's not locked. Great. And this is the print no print command, and that would say that yes, you have a layer, but you'll never see it when you make a plot. If you turn it on, it will plot. So we do want it to be a plotted layer. Great. And we are supposed to check and make sure the color is white. Yes, it is. And what else are we supposed to make sure? Here, color is white, and continue with that. All the rest of that's good. Now we want to make it active, so that's this little checkbox up here, this guy, set current. So it's now the current layer, and you can see up here we switched over to Xref, right? So that's our current layer. Anything we do now is on this layer, including attaching a reference file. So if I make a reference file now, it's going to attach it on a layer named Xref. And if I don't want to see it in the future, I can just shut it off here as by a layer. There's other ways to turn off Xrefs and other tools that can do it. This is a quick way to do it. Put it on a layer that's easy to shut off. All right, so that's one of the ways I prefer to do it. All right, so we've done that, and now I'm going to get rid of this because it's hogging up space on my screen. Now we're going to use the command X_attach, which attach an Xref. So X_attach. There we go. Hit space bar. Up it comes. Here's all the files that I've got locally, and I had to make sure you know where they are. So when you downloaded these, here's all the files I downloaded. Right. Through this is the one I'm actually working in now. This is the survey.dwg. That's the one I want to be my Xref. So I'm going to attach it. Yep, all looks good. I'm going to open it. It's going to ask me a bunch of questions here once it gets loaded. It just takes a little bit of time, and then it'll load up here. And this is step 3 in the instructions. Taking some time. It's an 8 meg file. It's not huge, but it's big enough. It takes a little time to get there. Right? Your scale may already be set to 1 uniform scale, or it may be specified on screen. If we know what scale we want to be in, don't use on screen, right? It's easier to do it here in this dialog box. We're setting all of our scales to 1. Yep, looks great. Or you can set the uniform scale to all one. There we go. Where's my insertion point? So I can either click on the screen and say drop it in here, or I can set it. And we want to be in the same coordinate system, in the same coordinate origin as the Xref. So we're going to insert it 0, 0, 0. So then whatever coordinates that survey file is in, this new design file is also going to be in it. And it's going to have the same center point for those coordinates. Great. Okay, we got that. Do I want to rotate it? No, I want to keep things the same way they are. The angle E is the default one for that. You can change your path here. Sometimes we do that. So this is a relative path, which means the reference file's path name, how you find it, is going to be related to where our design file path is. And if they're in the same directory, it's going to look for anything in its same directory with the name survey in it. If you go full path, right, it's going to, it doesn't show it, so that's too bad. Nope. Now it doesn't want to switch. I goofed up. There we go. We'll go relative path. Soldiers are running a little slow today. So that we want relative path so that it can find it. And if I move it, it's a fixed path or the full path. It's going to be like C:/AutoCAD/homework/lesson10/ and it will only look in that exact specific folder. If you do relative path, it looks in the nearest path or folder or one path below, wherever the survey is in comparison to our design file at the time we make it. All right, everything else looks good. We're going to do it as a reference, as an attachment. Great, and we click OK. It's going to think about it a little bit, and it'll eventually load here. And you can see it's doing things. Okay, there it is. All right, and you're a little bit familiar. This is, I think, the same file we might have used last time through that. So here it is. And if we knew where the origin was in the survey, we'll find that it's the same origin here in this new drawing because we inserted the exact same coordinates in the same scale as it was in its original file, in the survey.dwg file, right? So there it is. And we're in model space. We can drive around. We can see stuff in model space. Okay, great. All right, through that. So that's the end of step number 3. Now step number 4, we're going to center the model. Okay, we did that. There we go. Great. So step 4 is done. Now we're going to open up Layer Manager again. So there's our layer properties. Here we go. And what's it telling us to do? So we're opening up Layer Manager. And now we're going to zoom in over here, move this aside, and we're going to zoom in these shrubs here. All right, so these little symbols that are in the Xref file, right? And so I want to show you something real quick. All of this is in that referenced file, right? If I click on any of it, look, it all turns blue. It's all in one file. If I hit delete right now, it deletes everything that was Xref'd in. The survey file is fine. The original survey is fine. But in this design drawing, Lesson 10 ICA, that all that referenced will be blown away at once, right? Because it's all one thing as it comes in as a reference. Now, later on, I'll show you some commands that actually separate the individual pieces out, but generally it treats a reference file as all one big element, right? And that's why it's all highlighted now when I clicked one thing in there, which is kind of annoying at times, right? Sometimes we want to separate things out, but it's an Xref, right? Doesn't actually live in this drawing. It's just being referenced in this drawing. So it all gets highlighted at once. All right. So we're going to look in here. If we want to look at, but now I want to know what layer this is on. I want to know what layer that's on. I want to know what layer this is on. That's a very common thing I've often asked myself when I'm working in these. If I click on it, and normally if it was in my design file, it would tell me what layer it is up here. Nope, it's not going to now because it's in an Xref. But if there's a special command called xlist, and that will list the name of the layer that thing's on in its reference file. And there it is. And so this is telling you what it is. The layer it's on is survey, and then this vertical slash is telling you survey is the name of the referenced file. Then the vertical slash, this is the name of the layer within that referenced file. So within the referenced file survey, there's a layer named EX1SymTrees. So that's tree symbols on a certain layer, existing symbols for trees. if I've got multiple Xrefs, it's nice to know which Xref it is. That's why it starts out with that before they call it the vertical pipe symbol or just a vertical line. And then the rest of it is the actual name of the layer within that file name, right? All right, great. So now I know what layer this symbol's on. Okay, so if I need to shut that off for some reason, or I want to change it in some way, I can. And that's what we're going to do next. And so now we're going to go into Layer Manager. And before I only had from here on down listed, and then all the layers over here. Now that I put it in a reference file, did an Xref, now there's a whole section that's just Xref, right? And I can right click this thing and I can turn the visibility off. I can turn off that whole Xref that way, or I could go to that layer Xref and turn it off there. So we've got a couple different ways to do it. So anything that came in from the referenced files are here. Which ones we have? Only have one reference file. It's called survey. So I can click that, or I can click there. Either way, here it's giving you that same naming convention. It starts out with the name of the referenced file and then the name of the layer is in that file. If I opened up survey.dog, I wouldn't see this first part. I would just see these layer names in it, and they exactly match, and the colors and all that should match. Now you can, once it's inserted, you can change them independently, but for now they all should match what it came in as, right? And what the instructions are saying is we just finished 7. We just did the X list, so we're in step 8 now. It says go to Layer Manager under Xref section, find a layer name the tree was on, and freeze it. So all right, so what was in? You remember what the name of that layer was? I think it was EX1 maybe. There it is. EX1 Sim Tree. Sim Trees, there it is. EX1 Sim Trees. I think it was that guy. Okay, so now keep your eye on this. Here's my little tree symbol, and I'm gonna. I'm supposed to turn it off or freeze it. I'm gonna freeze it, so I'm turning off the sun, and it goes away. Right. So I just froze that layer. You can't see it anymore. Right. I could toggle it back on if I wanted to. Give it a second, and there it is. Right. And so I used XList to find out what layer it's on. Now I can come in here in Layer Manager under the Xref section under Survey and exactly turn on or off that layer. Right? I could also change the color of that layer if I wanted to, or what line type it was in that. Now it doesn't actually change the root survey file, but it changes how it looks in this file as a reference. Okay. All right, so it disappeared. Great. Hey, we made some progress, right? So let's zoom out. I'm going to get rid of this again. All right, so now I turned off all those annoying trees, so it cleaned up my drawing a little bit. Looks a little bit nicer, right? Through there. So we're in step number 9 now. So now I've got this blue line that cuts across here. It didn't show up well in the instructions, but there it is, right? Now, what's that dumb line doing on here? Now, let's get rid of this dumb line that's in the middle, right? And if I click on it, okay, it's part of the Xref, so everything turns on. All right, I can't, if I froze that, if I turned it off or deleted it, it would take out everything right through there. But now the funny thing is, I shouldn't say turn off. If I deleted it, it would have deleted everything in the reference. These individual turn off and freeze commands do work on individual elements within the reference file. So that's handy because quite often, very regularly, we don't want all the layers in that original file turned on. We want to clean things up a little bit. There's a lot of extraneous data we don't need, right? Through there, but also you can say, well, this drawing looks cluttered, it looks busy, right? So there's this cool thing you can mute how bright the Xref looks and make it dimmer compared to your new drawing lines through there. So we're going to look at that here in a second and make sure I'm doing this in the right order. It is still step 9. Great. I want to get off on my own tangent here. So I'm going to go to Insert Tab. Insert Tab is where references live. So here you could have used, instead of X attach, I could have just clicked here, right? And so forth. So now I'm going to click this down arrow here in the reference in the center. And I can change my fading of my Xrefs. So I can, again, my computer's running kind of slow today. So I'm dragging this slowly to the side here. Down to 13. Let's type in 10. There we go. So I just change the fading on that, and that will fade out the background of the reference file, right? And it's not doing a lot. It's very, I don't know if we could tell it. If I see if I can fade it, it could be my computer is just not happy today, right? It should be dimming this background as I change that reference, fade, right? So, and then here, if you use this little arrow, the diagonal down arrow, right? This shows you all the different layers that are in here. Here's survey, okay, and it's highlighting it. This one isn't in there right now, so this is that survey one, so didn't find it, right? And that's my, so you can see, and you can reload it, you can detach, you can do a bunch of different things in here through this dialog box. This will tell you exactly what's attached and where you're at with that. So I can close that back again. Yep. So nice fading. So it should be very dim. I didn't really see it change much, but hopefully it works better on yours than it did mine. Normally this works. So let's move on. So that's 9. It doesn't really matter. It was just showing you have some options there in that. 10 now, now that we can see the Xref better, now we're going to go back to this home tab, right? And over here in the layer section, we're going to freeze those blue lines so we can get rid of it, right? So we're just going to come here, grab freeze, come over here and snag the blue line, and there it goes, right? So these are some of the commands that actually do work on individual pieces of the Xref. That line is still in there. It's still in the original drawing. We just don't see it now in this drawing. So we cleaned up our drawing a little bit. Makes life a little easier for us. All right, now I'm going to come back here to layer properties, and we are now jumping down to step number 11. And actually 12. Now we're going to create another new layer. And if I create a layer here, it's going to give me an error message. And it's going to say, oh, new layer created does not match the current layer. That's because I have Xref. I'm still, I've selected Xref, and it doesn't want to add a new layer under an Xref because I'm not in that Xref, right? I'm going to come here to all, and now I'm going to add a new layer. And that'll be fine. Here's that. And well, that's our first one called is EOP, which stands for Edge of Pavement. And it tells us that it's going to be green and a weight of 3. And I have to make sure it's turned on and it's not locked. If it's locked, I can't draw on it. So I have to make sure it's unlocked. Make sure it's going to print. I'm going to switch it over here to green. Okay. And I am going to change it. Line weight to 0.3. Great. Okay. You see how that all happened? Why did it come in turned off and locked? Because the last layer I was clicked on, which was that the blue line layer, it was locked and turned off. So when you create a new layer, it mimics whatever your last settings were. And so it brought it in oddly case, or maybe it was modeling that X symbol trees. It was turned off and locked. I had to turn both those things back on, change the color, and change the line weight. All right, through that. So there we go. And now it's in the all layer. And I'm going to make it the active layer, make it current. Come on. There we go. And that's the green checkbox there. Now I've got a green checkbox there. And now I can see this is my edge of pavement there. All right, so we're going to do a little drafting now. We're going to draw this thing in. And we are already down to step 13 for today. And I'm going to come here and make lines. I'm going to, for this diagonal road, which is kind of road 20, I'm going to snag the center line. I'm just going to snap to it. I've got in my snap settings down here, double check. You want to make sure nearest tangent, perpendicular, extension, intersection, and center and endpoint are on. Those are my normal ones. Those are ones I usually leave on. Sometimes I throw in a parent intersection there too, just for kicks, right? I'm using nearest right now, and that's why it's snapping so nicely to everything. So I've got nearest turned on. I'm going to do this line again. I'm going to do it over here on this side. And you'll see in a minute why we don't just draw it straight through the center. Okay. And now I want to make 12-foot lanes either side of that, and that's going to be my edge of pavement. So I'm going to use this offset command. This is one of my favorite commands ever. All right, 12 feet, because that's how wide traffic lanes are. Look at that. There we snap that guy, snap this guy. All right, and now I don't need this. This was just a construction line. I just started with that because I can't really offset the white line. this is an element within AutoCAD. It's an active element, a smart element. We don't want to mess with it. So that's why I drew on top of it, and I offset those. Once I'm done, I delete the line that was on top of them. And I'm left with these two future edge of pavements. All right, that's where my future edge of lanes are going to be for this project. And then next we're supposed to draw in over here. I'm not realigning the road, so I'm just going to match where the existing edge of the road is, and that's what this dashed green line is. That's the existing edge of road. I'm just going to snap right on top of that, of those lines. Looks okay. All right, and come down here. And again, the dashed line down below, this surveyed edge of road is in the survey drawing, and I'm snapping over the top of it. I can do stuff now with the solid lines, but nothing is going to affect those dashed lines down below. So the original elements aren't being affected at all through that. All right, so that's step 13, and moving on down to 14 now. We're gonna we already traced over those lines. Now 15, yep, we're good there. Now we're going to put the radiuses of our new corners in, right? So this is the edge of this road. Here's the edge of that road. I need to draw a new radius in. You can see the old one is here. I need to draw a new radius in here. Yeah, whatever my new design radius should be. These acute corners should be a 60-foot radius, right? And you can get crazy here, right? You can put in your arc, and you can match up the center of circles. You can do a 2-point with a radius and all that, right? The easiest tool by far, I think, is our friend, the fillet. So here's fillet. And fillet, I'm going to hit R for radius. I'm going to type in, this one was 60, right? Space bar. Now I want to check the trim setting to make sure it's in trim mode. It is in trim mode. All right, so now I'm ready to go. It's going to do a 60-foot radius. It's going to trim off the ends of both of the original lines, that line to that line. Look at that. All right, there I got my nice 60-foot radius in. I'm going to do the same thing up here. So I'm going to repeat the command. I'm going to right click, repeat the command, hit this guy, hit this guy. Oh, look at that. Right. So here's the edge of the new road, my new intersection. Right. And these are 120-foot radii over here. So I'm going to hit fillet again, radius 120. Trim should be the same as it was before. So I don't have to check it again. And right click, repeat the command, hit those guys. Oh, there we go. There's my new intersection. But that's the new edges of pavement, and officially designed to handle trucks. There you go. Right. So there we go. We're in good shape now. I'm going to save before we get too far, just in case something crashes. Especially if you're on the remote computers in the lab. You want to save a lot. Also, I'm going to drink water before we move on. Okay, we are now down to step 17. Now we're going to create another new layer. So that's edge of pavement, and that's in green. All right, create a new layer. I'm in all. Great. I'm going to create a new layer. Here's my layer one. I'm going to call a new one EOS for edge of shoulder. It mimicked the exact same settings from the last layer. So the current layer is EOP. EOS looks exactly the same so far, but we don't want it to be exactly the same. So we're going to pick a color cyan, which is this guy. Right, there's cyan. Okay, we are keeping it continuous, and we're also keeping weight 0.3, but we just changed the color. I'm going to make this my active layer. There it is. It's now current. Great. I'm going to get rid of this box so I can see things better. All right, through there. And now I'm going to make these shoulders, right? So this is the edge of the travel lanes, the green line, and outside of that is a shoulder, right? And the easy way to do shoulders is offset again. This is a 4-foot shoulder. Zoom in so you can see what you're doing. Offset, offset. Okay, and I'm gonna offset this. Just go around. I'm gonna offset all of these. All right. And currently is not drawing them in on the right layer, right? It is because you're copying it, it's keeping the original layer settings. All right, let's check it. Yep, it still thinks it's EOP. I can change that though, right? If I select them, select them, select them, and this one, and this one, this one. I'm going to select all these. I can barely see that one. We can come back and get it later. All these outer layers or lines. All right. And I don't want to do this multiple things. Back over here, I can take all of these and I don't want to do that setting. Down here is it changes anything you select. It'll move it to what your current layer is. My current layer is EOS, so I want to select it, and it moved them all. Now they're all cyan. All right. You can also individually select one thing, come up here, and if it works, go on. There it goes. It's a little slow. Come down and select it. It'll change that that way as well. And that one should have been EOP, so we'll put it back. Yep. All right, so that's multiple ways to do it. I like to use this command down here, which is move what I just selected onto the current layer. So I use that command a lot for layers. So there we go. Got all that. I missed one up here. I'm going to grab him. Gonna do the same. All right, so now I've got edge of pavements. I got the edge of shoulder on the outside of it. And now we're going to clean this up and make it look pretty. That's what the instructions say to do. So we will do it, all right? So I am gonna, I think I'm gonna use edge of pavement for this cleanup work. Does it say which one? It does not. So I'm gonna clean it up with that. We want to come across here. We want to draw this perpendicular. Right. Make it nice and neat across the end. Yeah, it looks like a neat. Looks how the ends of roads look. On this side, we want to snap into wherever the end of that radius is. Right there it is. You can see it turned into a box. And I'm going to come straight across, snap perpendicular. At the end of the radius, that's where we can end our road. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on his shoulder. The X or the box, that's how you know you're at the end of that arc. Come straight across. It looks great. Okay. This one should have ended there, so I can just delete it. The rest of these I should better trim, right? Hit trim. This is my trim line. What am I trimming? I'm trimming that guy, and that guy. There's the end of my pavement approach. All right. We didn't want to go back too far. That looks great. Up here, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to trim. Here's my trim object. Space bar. Selection is done. Now I'm trimming these things. You see that first line didn't trim? It's because it actually was already broken there, and I can just click it, hit delete, and it's gone. That's where we started our line. We drew it to that point to start with. And then over here, we want to trim. We want to get this to look nice too. So I'm just going to pick a line here, come across, make sure it's parallel or perpendicular, sorry, there. Now I'm going to trim using this guy. And we're going to trim that one, that one, that one, that one. There we go. All right. We have trimmed it up and put nice terminations on all the approaches. Okay, so that is the end of step 17, right? No, actually, that's 18. We're already through 18. All right. So now we've got it drawn in. I'm going to save it again. And now we're going to move into paper space. So we're moving over here. Select sheet 1. That should look familiar, right? This is our famous title block. We've seen it a lot, right? Well, here's my new stuff. Here's all my new design stuff in my layout. Isn't that great? And we're going to change our scale here. So I'm going to jump into paper space. Okay. Double clicked in there. Sorry. Now I'm in model space. I went from paper to model. I'm in model space. I'm going to change my scale. It's 1 to 70. That's huge. I'm going to go 1 to 30. So you can actually see the intersection. There it is. I'm going to scoot this thing over a little bit. You're going to find out why here in a second. That looks great. Still 1 to 30, right? I didn't mess up the scale by accident. Switch back over to paper space. There we go. All right, now I'm going to do VP clip, which is I'm going to change this viewport. Actually, I got to change layers first too. I'm going to change that viewport then to add in a little detail area here for us so we can see stuff better in there. And first thing we got to do is we got to switch over to SH Viewports is our new layer. And that means sheet viewports. And so that's set up. It's not in the reference file, it's in the main file, sheet viewports. That's my new current layer, my active layer. I'm going to use the VP clip, which hopefully we remember, from last time or the time before. What viewport? Well, guess what? The edge of that viewport is hidden underneath these orange lines again. So I'm going to zoom in on this corner, because that's where it was easy to find last time. Which viewport? Okay, if you move real slow, zoom in some more, move real slow, there it is, right? That's the line right here in the center. Don't want that one. That's the border. I want that guy. Gotcha, right? And it says polygonal. Yes, I want polygonal. All right, where is my new clip? And I have to redraw the boundary I want as my future boundary, right? Let's start over here. Snap to that. Drive over here. Let's snap there. Let's come down here. Snap there. Snap there. Perpendicular, right? And I just knocked a chunk out in that top right corner. Come across. Snap. And I'm going to hit C for close. And there it is. Right? It has resized that viewport with using VP clip. And now I've got this box knocked out of the corner. What do I want to put in this box? All right, could put text. I could put the legend in there. We do that sometimes. That'd be a reason we would clip this off so that we don't see a bunch of stuff in the background, right? I'm actually going to put a new viewport in here, right? So I'm going to do viewports. You should remember that one from last time. We're going to do a single viewport. Yes. Pick a point, and now it says pick the opposite corner. Like it's drawing a box. It knows it's going to be a single box. I'll come up here and draw there. Okay, there it is. And that should go into model space then. And it took it a while, but it loaded, right? And it shows you everything in model space. Here's all that gobbledygook over the right. We don't want that stuff, right? So we're going to, double click in there to turn on model. Drive over here. We're going to zoom in. And we want this lower right corner zoomed in. And look how messy all that text is, right? Remember how to fix that? Right, regen. Type in regen. Give it a second. All right, it fixed it for us, right? Isn't that nice? And we want this scale, according to step 23, to be a 1 to 10 scale. All right, and we want to see the corner. Come on. So I'm going to scoot this over so I can see the corner. Yeah, there we go. And check, yep, still 1 to 10. Switch back to model space. So I blew up this corner so I could see it better. All right, so this is an exploded view of the detail. 1 to 30 scale, 1 to 10 scale. All right, nice. And now we're going to add dimensions on it. But first we got to switch layer name. So back to home. Over here, I'm going to be on the layer named CE151. There's nothing special about these names, really. You could pick any name you wanted, but that's what this one's set up to be. So CE151 is for annotation. Yeah, I'm on an annotation. That's what I'm doing next, right? And so now we are going to do dimensions. We are going to put the radiuses in the corners. Yep. And when we're done, then we'll add some text in. I'm not going to do all of this because you guys can do this just fine on your own. All right, so I'm going to make sure I'm in paper space, and I'm going to zoom in down here. I need to put some dimensions in here. How is the contractor going to know how far from the center line over is the edge of pavement and the shoulder, and so that's the right way. Now we don't need that one. All right, so I'm going to go to Annotate tab. I'm going to do aligned because this is at an angle, but I want it to be lined up. So I'm going to snap to there, snap there. Oh, look at that. That's a 12-foot lane. Great. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put a dimension in here on the shoulder there. Okay, everybody can tell now what that is. I can drop in here. I can put in a radius. If I snag that guy, there we go. Look at that. There's a 120-foot radius. All right, and you can continue to do that. You can add in annotations with a multi-leader in it. The zoom in the instructions and see all the different details and all the different dimensions you're expected to draw in there. Right. So this is really good practice, and this is exactly what we would do in the real design world is. Like I mentioned last time, we almost never, pretty much never, put dimensions in the model space. The dimensions are always in paper space. But you can snap in, kind of looking through the page, you can snap to the elements in the model space, which are actually an Xref. All right, but obviously it found it because it gave it the appropriate dimensions. All right, through there. So that's great. And it's nice we can snap to it, right? And we want to do the same thing over here. We want to throw some details in here because this is our blow up view, right? So I'm going to go back to aligned. I'm going to throw in this guy. Perpendicular, yeah, 4 foot. Look at that. Right, it knows. And we need to put a radius in here so people can tell what that radius is. That guy. There we go. All right, and there's only a couple more in there. I think we're also supposed to put in the dimension from the corner of this house up to the shoulder, right? So we want to know how far away that shoulder is, right through there. So we can do, I think that would also be aligned, wouldn't it? So we can come up here, perpendicular, there we go. Look at that. There's my 24-foot distance. So that's pretty close. We don't really want to put a house that close normally to the edge of a road, but you legally can through there. As long as the right-of-way is more than 5 feet from the house, you don't have to buy the house. But okay, that's just a little side note for you. So go ahead and finish up all the dimensions. Look in on the notes what we ask you to do for that. Right. So now you've got your sheet. You've designed it. You drew in your intersection. You've got a detail of the intersection so the contractor can see better what they're supposed to be building. You've got dimensions on it, enough dimensions hopefully they can build it. You've put some notes on here. It's as part of your leaders. That I did not do, but I'll let you do it for that, so the contractor knows what they're doing, right? So your drawing's ready to go, right? Let's make a print for the contractor. So we're in sheet 1. I'm going to right-click sheet 1, go to Page Setup Manager, and yes, sheet 1. I'm going to modify it. Oh, this printer doesn't exist. Nope, it doesn't. We don't have that plotter anymore, and we're going to use the same plot setup we had before, which is drawing to PDF. So we're going to make an Adobe Reader PDF file out of this guy, right? What size paper is? Yeah, that looks right. 36 by 24. That's an architecture full bleed D, as they say. So that looks great. I want to do scale line weights. I like scale line weights. And we're going to do grayscale, if I remember right. And let's check. Yep, we're supposed to do grayscale. Everything looks good, right? Grayscale, scaled line weights, that. What's it look like? Let's preview this thing. Yep, well, that looks pretty good. Seems like everything's on there, right? And that viewport that we had is a non-plot layer. And we do that on purpose because we don't really want it. There's very little need for us to ever plot the edge of the viewports. We like to hide them normally, and so it did hide it. Now in this case you might have wanted a harder border there to show for your detail. If that's the case, you can use a different layer that's not hidden to draw in this box for that one, or you could use lines in the sheet border. Oh, sorry, lines in the sheet border to draw that through there. Sorry, I'm putting my own self to sleep. That's how boring this lecture is. So we've got grayscale, we've got quality. So I think we're ready to go, and we're doing drawing to PDF. I hit OK. It should ask me. Close. So I've set it up as a tab. It's set up to do that, and now I actually have to plot it. Come up here, hit the little print button. There we go. Unrecognized layers. I don't really care. It'll make you do this every time, and you can go through and fix those through that. I am going to ignore that, and let's see if it'll let me plot now. Don't want to see them. I'm just going to go straight to plot. So I clicked no that time. All right, looks great. Blah blah blah. And now it's going to ask me for the name. I want it. Yeah, let's save it. Make sure you know where it is. Put it probably in the same directory as your other stuff. Right. Okay, now mine came up over here. Here's what it looks like. Here's my plot. Right, looks great. Actually, I don't know why I didn't like those unrecognized layers. Everything seemed to turn out just fine. Right? And that's, you'll upload this then. That's your proof that you did everything right, more or less. And we'll check. We'll check that you got the port made over here, the extra little viewport. You got your dimensions in there. You turned the things off that you needed to, and gave you some good practice again going back into paper space and doing plots again, all of which again are super useful and things we use all the time in the production world, in a real design office. Right? Literally everything in this lesson today is stuff I would do every single day, multiple times a day, in a design office, working with Xrefs, doing plots, the whole 9 yards. Right through there, you'll one good internship and you'll be sick of some of this through that. So that's today's lesson. Go ahead and get that finished up and then upload to Blackboard when you're done, and there'll be a homework then as well.